I love this quote from Nick Dalton, and this really actually speaks to exactly what I'm talking about in the sense that Nick Dalton actually just wrote a book that's called I Live in the Future and Here's How It Works. Great book, but in his later chapters, he really talks about a storytelling world with participation, and it really speaks to this whole idea that, when you think of the millennial generation, that they're growing up in this two-way communication, and it's very difficult to have these very static stories, if you will, in anything and everything. So, you obviously can see that with the rise of social media. It's no surprise with that. But we're even seeing or hearing stories now sort of coming out of places like Hollywood, where instead of, making the next version of a movie, so a movie might come out and be very successful, instead of making part 2 of that movie, they'll come out and make the continued story within an actual game environment to actually continue on, or have the audience actually create their own stories or really participate and get immersed within the actual story.
This is where that new term, I don't know whether it's new or not, but transmedia sort of comes up here, where you have storytelling spread across multiple platforms.
Exactly. So just to illustrate this, I wanted to talk a little bit about the Canadian Opera Company and really just sort of illustrate some of the initial work that we did with them. So we've actually been working with them for about 3 years now. And our first initiative with them was really they came to us and wanted us to redesign their website. That was really what they were looking for. And some of the initial conversations were, this is an incredible art form. Anybody that's ever had the chance to go to the opera, it's absolutely magnificent. It's beautiful, and it's a very, very rich, deep experience that you'll have, and something that's very difficult to replicate in, quite honestly, any other medium other than the live form that it is. But they really wanted to look at the website, and obviously they wanted to try to express the opera in some way that represented that. Now our first question was, let's really take a look at the actual customers, and let's take a look at who are your primary audience from a digital media or an online perspective. So when we took a step back and looked at that, really what came out was the 20% of the entire audience was really this boomer audience. And we actually called it, from a profile perspective, loaded and overloaded families. And we looked at them, they were really not looking for these, a real deep, immersive experience. They get that at the opera itself. They were looking for some way of the online experience to become, easier and help me find the performance of my seats and, how much they cost. Just, send me an email with the easy information. Just make my life simpler, because these people are incredibly busy. So you can see it's actually the top right corner. That's what the actual homepage looks like now. And, again, it's not about a deep, immersive experience at a top level. It's about easy navigation, easy to find information, and allow these people to basically do what they're looking for. So the next primary audience, which was another 20% of the audience, might have been a little bit less, like 19% or 18% of the audience, was just young city clickers. And these were really these millennials. And again, they were heavy users of technology. By the way, I should point out the loaded and overloaded. They were also indicated that they owned every piece of technology, but again, they really wanted it to help them in their lives. So young city clickers, they were really heavy users of technology, both from a social and also a work purposes as well. And they're also willing to pay for more items that help save their time. But the real difference was when we started digging in and asking more questions, they wanted to actually go beyond, go deeper and understand the stories and the performances and, get in behind how was the set design. Really this idea of, after the curtain went down, they wanted to have this deeper, richer participation. And so what we did is we actually added in a number of modules within the actual site itself as just as a first off to address this audience by creating these really deep, immersive experiences where you have this almost like book-like experience, and you can flip through the pages and look in behind the making of Madame Butterfly. So it was a really neat experience. But this was really to address this audience. So you can see, again, this millennial audience were really looking for this participation. They wanted to be involved in the storytelling itself. So, talked about the differences in terms of the one-way and the two-way communication. Well, in fact, they actually have a lot in common as well, as I did mention at the beginning around sort of overall growing up in actual technology times, if you will, or just sort of different technology times. And when we look at the two as well, Millennials and Boomers actually share the concerns about the impact of technology, particularly the impact it has on their life, particularly the fact that technology is really changing the world too quickly. So they are both concerned about this. And really when we dig into this a little bit, it really comes back to the fact that all these age groups and the pressures that they're under in terms of time constraints, in Canada with their busy lives, whether it be going to school, university, whatever, or at the workplace, they're incredibly busy and they're incredibly time-starved. And I mean, although younger boomers and boomers seem to show that a little bit more, although older boomers I think it's a little bit less in terms of time-starved, we also are seeing that with the millennials as well. They're just handling technology different than the boomer generation. The other thing where they're actually more similar as well when it comes to submitting information, so the idea of privacy, and there's a little bit of, I think, a slight misconception around the millennial generation where they're really willing to just post anything and everything. Now, granted, they are. They absolutely, they go to various different things and take pictures and submit them up on Facebook, and there tends to be this whole idea that they're not really paying attention to what's going on. But in fact, actually, they're actually more similar in the sense that they just look at sharing information differently. So boomers are a little more reserved about sharing personal information. They see it as more identifying. So if they share the personal information, an organization can identify who they are. Millennials, however, they see it a little differently. They understand that it's not directly related to identifying them, but it's more about helping an organization better understand them or profile them, right? So they can understand the type of person they are and potentially service them better or serve them content in a better way. So they really do understand that it's not about, they're going to give this information, they're going to take it and do evil purposes. There tends to be a lot more trust within that group. Call it naivety, whatever you want to call it, but there definitely is more trust. Where they do draw the line, and you can see across the board where they're equal, is the idea of submitting a home address or a home phone number. This is where they're equal, where they're not necessarily as comfortable about submitting this information online as they would be in terms of providing, attitudinal information about products or services and those kinds of things, or rating products and those kinds of things. So they definitely are a little more concerned about that, or equal across the board. I want to talk a little bit about mobile and the behaviors across the board. Mobile clearly is a very, very hot topic, probably next to what are millennials doing. I'd say mobile and social media are clearly the hottest topic. So one thing that IPG came out was this idea that, there's a number of people, particularly in North America, are really sort of cutting their landlines, if you will, and going completely mobile. Now that actual quote was a couple of years old, but in fact it actually holds up here as well, and I'll show you in a second what I mean by that. The other thing as well, Morgan Stanley actually came out last December with a report, and it's really interesting. It said basically they found that more people access the internet via mobile web or for your mobile device than the desktop in the next 5 years. So you can see there's significant changes and very quickly happening as we become increasingly mobile or be able to access the web via mobile devices. So just talking a little bit about this mobile behavior and just kind of referring back to this idea of, using your mobile device as your primary device at home. If you look at the left column, that left column is really I don't have a landline, and then the right column is I use my mobile at home. So in the case of the millennials, 26% are saying they don't have a landline, and 89% are saying that they use their mobile at home. And you can see that it's pretty significant across the board, particularly that they use their mobile at home. And I'm going to get into a little bit more about in terms of what they're doing at home, but this is pretty significant. And when you look at Canadian Wireless Telecommunication, they actually, in June of 2010, they had Canadian wireless phone subscribers numbered at about 23.4 million, and I'm sure that's even increased since then. And then half of all phone connections in Canada are now wireless, and it's just increasing month over month and year over year. So again, the idea of mobile and the use at home is increasing, and the idea that they're using it more so than even their landline. And when we look at millennials specifically around sort of their behavior at home, the idea that, I love this Pew Research quote, when they found around 83% of millennials are sleeping within their cell phones within reach, and we're seeing a lot of this behavior around the fact that it's replacing a lot of the technologies that we've had over the years, or technologies that boomers have had in mainstay for many years, the clock radio, the calendars, those kinds of things. They typically, particularly the smartphone is replacing a lot of those devices instead of having to have so many of them. And we think of this idea of time and, the idea that they're sleeping with them in close quarters, the idea of millennials and not necessarily having any sense of time across the board. We look at sort of the different times of day that they're actually using or accessing their mobile device. And, right across the board, this is pretty significant in terms of the differences between millennials and boomers. And, when you think about, obviously, they're checking it, as soon as they get up in the morning, or they're at dinner, or they're going to bed. It's a constant activity that they're doing. If you've ever had a chance to sit with a 18 to 24-year-old, you might know what I mean in terms of, especially if they have a mobile device in their hand and you're having dinner with them. You think you're having dinner with them, but you're actually having dinner with them and probably about 12 of their friends at the same time, because they are actively on this device and they're checking, and they're very comfortable with this. But the boomers, they tend to think these are more sort of sacred times of day, if you will, and this is sort of personal time, and particularly dinner. It's about sitting and having dinner and communicating more in a communication with the people around you versus the idea of there's this two-way communication going on with anybody and everybody outside of those times. In terms of activity, this is where I was talking about sort of what's going on, particularly what kind of mobile activities that they're actively involved with. So all generations, the differences between sort of millennials and boomers, really at any age, are pretty significant, or the differences are pretty significant, except for game playing. And it's really interesting where, particularly with millennials and younger boomers, there seems to be a direct correlation between them both playing games or using their games pretty active from a mobile perspective. There's a couple things about this. One is, we're seeing a rise of particularly younger boomers. They're using their mobile device in this, what we often refer to as in-between activities, so on transit, waiting in line, various activities. So they're comfortable with the mobile device, and they tend to be pulling it out and sort of doing different things in between these various different activities, and playing games just happens to be probably is one of the kind of larger ones they're doing with it as well. And they're also fairly comfortable using it as their sort of central device to organize their life, if you will, from a calendar or keeping their contacts, or being their primary device even for that matter, to keep their contacts. So younger boomers are becoming pretty significant in terms of their use of the mobile device. And then the last thing I want to point out as well is that they tend to be using it as a bit of a digital leash with their millennials in terms of possibly their children, where they're using it in the sense of be able to communicate with SMS and so on and so forth versus having to call. So we're seeing the rise of that as well.